Ladies and gentlemen, fellas, welcome back to the channel and the podcast. Sal Vetri here, and today we're talking the Memorial. We're talking your bets. We're talking early bets too, in terms of I'm looking at these numbers very early in the week. I'm talking it's 5:20 a.m. East Coast time right now on Monday. We're playing at Merrifield Village for the second straight week. I'm very excited about this because, look, it was a successful week for me last week when it comes to some bets as well, like having a Poulter in the top 10. He gets to the top 5 on a putt on a nice birdie putt on the last hole. But DraftKings is where it was really great, and it was my best week since the return of golf. I have to go back and see if it was my best week this year. It would have been even better. I had JT in all my high stakes lineups. Obviously, he loses in the playoff in like round 4 of the goddamn playoff, and it was like a $3,700 difference. Still a very profitable week and very good week. But seeing him hit that 50-footer after already leading by 3 strokes with 3 holes to play, and then actually Morikawa forcing the playoff, it really did hurt. So yeah, we're back to another week here. It was a fun event, a very fun event. It seemed like, once again, not a lot of 6 out of 6s on the DraftKings side, but I want to show you the betting numbers right early in the morning because I do think that these numbers are going to fade a little bit. So I want to let you know where I'm going. I've already placed a couple of bets. Last week we did a first look, my first look looking at it. This week I've taken a couple of notes and I've already looked at it. Placed a couple of bets already, and I have some guys that I'm going to be looking at and hoping to bet before the numbers changes. So I have written down 8 guys. We'll just go through some of the odds. I'm going to talk about just kind of recent form on these guys, talk about why I like them, give you a reason other than I like this guy's name, right? No, nothing like that. So I appreciate you being here. If you can, it's totally free. Hitting the like button and the subscribe button on YouTube goes a really long way for this reaching more people. I really ask you if you could do that. I do appreciate it a ton. And whether you're watching on YouTube or you're listening on the podcast, leaving a podcast review on iTunes, you just go to the iTunes store, Sal Vetri Show, or iTunes podcast platform, and all you have to do there is end up leaving a review. You get into a raffle for $50. Last week, I think 6 people left a review, so pretty good odds to win $50. You can do all that. It'll be linked down below, and if it's not for some reason, just Sal Vetri Show on iTunes. Appreciate all of that. So without further ado, let's get into it. So just another highlight. It's the same exact course as last week. They're keeping it the same distance, 7,456 yards, a par 72. It's going to be bent grass greens as it was last week, but they're changing a couple of things compared to last week. And the things that they're going to be changing are the tee boxes, the pin locations. Those are like almost obvious, but since it's going to be the same course, they're going to be changing it. Longer rough. I think they're growing out the rough a little bit more. They're just changing the rough sizes at all different parts of the course. And then the green speeds, they're going to be playing a little bit quicker this week. If you did watch the event, you know there's a ton of hazards here. There's 13 water hazards and there's over 70 bunkers. I think like 73 or 74 total bunkers. The cut line at the workday was 2 under, but in the past at Memorial, when they have all these other features like the faster greens and the rough, it ended up being last year 2 over, 1 over, and 4 over. So this is a very difficult course, even though it played a little bit easier last week. The cut line barely got pushed from 1 under to 2 under. Actually, it was Saturday morning after the weather delay. So Tiger's back in the field. He's won this event 5 times. He's looking for a record setting, once again, 6th time here. The field was expanded from 120 players to 133 players now, and there are past winners in the field, including the defending champ, Patrick Cantley, who won last year after shooting a 8 under 64 to win by 2 strokes in the 2019 Memorial Tournament. So if you watch a DraftKings video, you'll know kind of my key stats and what some of my key stats are for this week. I'm looking at approach play, tee to green. I'm looking at around the green play, par 4s from 450 to 500 yards are some of the things that I'm going to be personally looking at. And then there's going to be some other things on here as well. I want to be looking at driving accuracy a little bit, although it's not going to be extremely important. Greens and regulations, always things that I'm waiting in my model to find the best bet numbers that I want to be looking at, best outright winners, top 10s, and then obviously some of the best daily fantasy and DraftKings plays. So without further ado, let's break down into it. And now as the week goes on, there's going to be more betting numbers on this board, just some comparison tools that I use. Right now, there's just 3 books up, which is enough to look. Like if there's only 1 book up, I probably wouldn't make the video yet because it could be very skewed. But since there's 3 books up, most of the numbers are going to fall within this range. Some outliers that we'll talk about, but for the most part, they're all going to be pretty similar. You can see right at the top of this thing, the favorite coming into this field, the guy who won the last time he was out there, he skipped the workday event. Bryson DeChambeau, who came back from Matthew Wolff, stormed him for being 3 down and ended up just kind of lapping the field at some points towards the end of that thing. He's 10-1 in this field. I'm going to tell you right now, like the favorites have been doing well. Bryson obviously won at 6-1, very short number. I didn't have that bet. Had him on DraftKings a lot. Justin Thomas last week doesn't win, but he goes to the playoff. Probably should have won, up 3 with 3 holes to play. Drops a 50-footer. Colin Morikawa just so relentless, but he probably should have won. I didn't bet him, but I had a ton of him on DraftKings. Bryson's the type of guy, and in this type of a field, I might not even have a ton of him on DraftKings. He's the type of guy that I'm just not going to get to. I probably end up just going to either some sort of top 20 finish. Even that might still be like a really short number, like maybe like a plus 150 you can find on him somewhere. But for the outrights 10-1 market, not going to go there. I'm going to be starting my card in the 20 range. And honestly, I'd rather just start my card in like the 30. This is going to be a major field like we had a couple of weeks back, right, when we started the return of golf. You're going to be able to get guys in the 40, 50, 60-1 range, even higher than that, maybe even the 100-1 range that have legitimate legitimate upside in winning, that have 3, 4, 5 wins, that might even have wins on this season, right? Just guys that you can know have the pedigree, are in recent form. So for me, going to Bryson here is not really something that I'm trying to do. I'll zoom in on some of the names. Bryson at 10 to 1. So these are the numbers right here. But again, I can just scroll. I'll let you know if there's any major differences. We'll use these quick bet numbers as a reference. There's sometimes going to be a little bit different, but I'll just reference them. So going after that, Justin Thomas, obviously looking fantastic, was leading the field in tee to green in all these aspects heading into Sunday. He had a little bit of a trouble to start Sunday, a couple of bogeys on the first 3 holes, and then he just fights back, relentless. I believe he went 4 birdies in a row to close up the front 9 heading into the back 9, but then he went par, bogey, bogey, and Collin Morikawa went birdie, par, par, or something along those lines, and ends up forcing the playoffs. So I'm not really going to be going to JT. Rory at 14 to 1 is the first spot that I look at and say that it's interesting. We know how good Rory is. He's going to be leading this field in strokes gained total now that he's back in the field. Now, that's over the last 50 rounds. If you start to look at it a little bit earlier than that, Bryson's going to start to get up there. JT will be up there a little bit. Even Viktor Hovland is storming that after leading the field in strokes gained tee to green now over the last couple of events. Rory, the last time we saw him, though, I mean, the thing that you like to see is all the stats that I'm looking for around the green play, approach play. They're obviously all there for him. The last time we did see him, he did lose 2 strokes on approach. I'm not really worried about that. He gained over 4 strokes around the green. These are things that I like to see. And once again, the guy finishes 11th. He gained 7.3 strokes total. That 11th was actually his best finish since the Arnold Palmer, so his best finish since the return. So maybe a little bit of rust on Rory overall, finishing 32nd at the Charles Schwab and 41st at the RBC Heritage. Again, though, the number at 14 to 1, I don't want to bet it. I want to live in the, honestly, the 20 range is where I would start, just if there's any standout names, and there is one. And then after that, I want to be living in that like 40 to 60 plus range, just because there's such good numbers. And you have to always think about it as you're betting the number, not as much the person. Now, it's good to get emotions in there. I'll probably talk about one in this one, but it's okay to, and it really what you should be trying to do is really betting some numbers. So you look at Rory and you see 14 to 1, you're going to expect Rory to win one time in the next 14 events, right? And obviously he hasn't won now in a little while. So you're looking at it and saying, okay, well, that's already cutting into it. The 6 events that he hasn't won, or the 7 events he hasn't won previous to teeing it up here. So those are the types of things I look at. Like when we get down to this guy right here, who stands out the most to me, Cantlay 14 to 1. That's fair. Cantlay had a very good Sunday, but the guy who also had a very good Sunday, that's probably going to go under the radar because of how good and how long the event lasted with all the playoffs, and because Cantlay was very good, 8 under at one point, finishes 7 under, was Jon Rahm. And Jon Rahm right here, you can see he's at 22 to 1. If I scroll over to some of his other numbers, he's at 18 and 22 to 1. I already have a bet placed on Jon Rahm. He is the first spot that I start my card on outright winners. Jon Rahm ended up finishing 27th in this past event. And you might look at that and say, if you didn't watch any of the event last week, man, Jon Rahm's struggling right now since returning. A missed cut, a 33rd, a 37th, to 27th. Yeah, Jon Rahm was dead fucking last in this tournament coming into, I believe, Sunday. He was like second to last. At some points, he was dead last. He was terrible. And you want to know what he goes out there and does on Sunday? Pretty good showdown play. I thought he was just too far out in the showdown format to really want to get to, because they reward finishing positions, and finishes 27th, not terrible. But he comes out and he leads the entire field on Sunday. The entire field in strokes gained tee to green, 6.29 gain, pretty decent over the next best. He kind of lapped the field by gaining 6.84 strokes total as well, which was one more than Patrick Cantlay, a guy who I think those two maybe get slept on a little bit because of how this event just ended, like I said, just with the fantastic playoff. But Cantlay gained 5.84 strokes total. But what you're getting on Cantlay is a guy who, he played kind of right? He never went crazy low. He played pretty well on Friday towards the end. I think he went eagle to really just secure his spot on the cut, right on the line at 2 under. But then they kind of just had similar Sundays, right? They had pretty middling performances. Cantlay pops off to have that higher finish because he just wasn't coming in dead last. But Jon Rahm being at 22 to 1, I bet this number. I think it probably goes down to 20 or 18 to 1. Like you're already seeing on some books, it's at 18 to 1. I like the fact that, look, he's coming into an event where he's been rusty, but you see something was just found on him on Sunday. And this is something that I usually like to hit on. I like to hit on the guys who have been playing pretty well. And the way in which he did it was sustainable. He only gained a half a stroke putting. He gained 6.29 strokes tee to green, and a lot of it came on approach, 4.31 on approach. And maybe this narrative of, oh, he played so well on Sunday doesn't carry over most weeks, but they're on the exact same course. So he figured something out that took him a couple of days to figure out. He made the cut, he got his 4 rounds in, and then he just went very, very low on Sunday. He ended up having the best overall round if you're looking at strokes gained total of the day. So I'm going to go back to Jon Rahm because I think it was a little bit under the radar. I'm actually going to like him on DraftKings as well. So that's a spot where I'm starting my card at 22 to 1. I think it'll be the only number in the 20s that I touch, at least to start the week. Maybe later on I'll go to somebody else. You have the fellas who are just beating worlds right now in Collin Morikawa, his second playoff since the return. The first time he screwed me over by not winning, and I had him on the betting number. This time he screws me over by winning because I don't have him, and I have a lot more JT in DraftKings. Nothing so much on the outrights. But Collin Morikawa, probably not going to go back to him after the win. On DraftKings, if he's priced price, fine, you can get there, right? A guy who's only missed the one cut. He has now 2 championships. You're going to see that stat a ton, but he's just a low number at 22-1. Same thing could be said for Victor Hovland. Victor Hovland has been literally opening at 22-1. Let's see what he is on the other books, 20 and 22. This is the 3rd straight event that Victor Hovland has opened 22-1. This field is way better than 2 weeks ago's field. It's better than last week's field, so the betting number doesn't make as much sense to me. The reason that it's going to stay at 22-1, even in a loaded field, though, is just because of how good that this kid has been playing, and he's been playing very, very good. He's literally led the field in tee to green play his last 3 events that he's been in. If you just look at how he's trending right now, since the return, a 23rd, a 21st, an 11th, a 12th, and a 3rd. Fantastic. He gained 15 strokes tee to green his last time out. 9.6 at the Rocket Mortgage, 10.6 at the Travelers. Those are his last 3 events tee to green play. And obviously, you know what his irons are going to do. He's very similar. He's very similar to Morikawa, and his putting has been improving. He's similar to Morikawa in terms of his approach play is going to be great. His around the green play since the return has been the best thing that we've been seeing out of him. That's where his short game has really improved. The putting is still not great. It's not horrendous, but it's still not great. The around the green play, though, right before break, he was losing in 11 straight contests around the green. Since we've returned in really the last 3 events, gaining a half a stroke, gaining 1.6, and gaining 2.2 strokes. Again, going to be at the same event this week. So Hovland's a guy that, yeah, obviously after finishing 3rd is going to be on a lot of people's radar. At 22-1, I'm just going to bet Jon Rahm right now because I think I'm buying a low point, whereas with Hovland, you're buying pretty close to the high of that number, right? So it's not as much as I don't like Hovland, it's just as much as the number. DraftKings, again, Hovland will be somebody who does stand out. Going down a little bit more, Brooks is somebody else who kind of sucked on Thursday. He storms back on Friday, but he just misses the cut. He ends up committing to the Memorial shortly after. Once again, Hideki was very good tee to green. He gained 9 strokes tee to green, but he lost 2.5 strokes with the putter. This guy just can't get that figured out. When you look at his overall finishing, he finished 6th in tee to green play. He finished with 6.54 strokes gained total last week. So just looking at some other names, Xander at 28-1, 22 on some sites is a fine number. Webb with 2 wins in his last 4 outings, 28-1. But this is the name. So you see it says right now Tiger Woods is at 28-1. But when I open this around 4:15 in the morning, and no, I don't get up that early just to look at numbers. I get up that early every single day because I run a business and I have to get some things done and balance a personal life and obviously work out and all these things that I like to do. And I also like getting up. I like being up when other people aren't because that's when I'm the most productive. But Tiger was 30-1 to open. I hit that number. I don't normally bet Tiger. When you're betting on Tiger, you're betting on the pedigree. I'm not somebody who believes in course history all that much. Obviously with Tiger Woods, he's going to be good at every single course. So for somebody to tell me I want to bet him at the Memorial because he's been so good here. Yeah, he finished T9 last year. He hasn't won since 2012. And obviously the evolution of Tiger Woods has completely changed since 2012. He's a totally different golfer. The thing that you bet on, if anything, is just the confidence with the course, I guess. But you're also just betting that he's healthy. And I'm betting the number. Tiger at 30-1, I thought he was going to open at like 16-1. I'm going to be completely honest because the books thought they can put him anywhere. I think there's a really good chance Tiger gets bet down to like 20-1. So I took the number at 30-1. Didn't put a ton on it. Right now, maybe I'll go back and hit it again. It's already down to 28 on this book. If I compare it to some of the other books that are out right now, he did open, like this is going to be a realistic number though because he opens 28 here. He opens 22 here if you see that. So I do think he'll open probably on most books somewhere around like 26, 28-1. I think he'll get bet down pretty quickly at around the 20-1 number before Thursday starts. So it's all about value. It's about beating the closing lines. You see Tiger open that 30-1, you know that number is not going to go up, so you might as well beat the closing lines. I think Tiger will win 1 out of his next 30 events, and that's what I'm kind of saying by betting that number. If it was at 16-1, I'd go, I don't really know if I'm getting the best number on that. So I have a bet on Jon Rahm at 22-1. I have a bet on Tiger at 30-1, and now I start to really like the card because we're quickly into the 30-1 range. And I guess I can quickly say about Tiger, the last time that we did actually see him in action, outside of that Peyton Manning, Tom Brady little thing that they did that was really fantastic in the rain with Phil Mickelson, the little charity event, he did look good there. But the last time that we've actually seen him on tour was the Genesis, where he finished 68. He just lost 8 strokes putting. Like, you can't read too much into that. And it was obviously back in February. I mean, we're talking 5 months ago. So 5 months ago, a guy loses 8 strokes putting, the worst that he's done with the putter in I don't even know how long. Let's see the last time he lost that much putting. The last time he lost that, I'm already back to like 2010. So that was like his worst performance putting ever. So obviously we're not going to bank on that. But before that, he was playing fine. We saw him at the Zozo. He won in October. We saw him at the Hero. He finished 4th. We saw him at the Farmers this year, his only other event. He finished 9th. So yeah, I'm not going to bank on it too much. I don't think he's going to be coming in terrible form. Obviously, a lot of the guys that we've seen coming back from break have looked fine. The only one who really stood out was Hideki's first start. So Tiger is somebody that I'm okay getting to, and I'm going to right now based on my betting card. Before we go now into the 40s and 50s and 60s numbers, I will just call out that Superdraft is the sponsor of the show. That's the logo. Superdraft right now. So if you want to get over there, it's a daily fantasy sports site. It's a multiplier format, so it's not salary cap based. And if you want to sign up, you get to play. You get to do a little bit of gambling over there, build a lineup, any players that you want. You want to play Tiger, you want to play Jon Rahm, you want to play your favorite plays, Bryson, right? Everybody you want to watch on TV, whatever you want to play, you can. It's just all about the multiplier and their points. The better golfer they are, probably the smaller the multiplier. So the best golfers in this event are going to be getting a 1x multiplier. Some of the guys who are a little bit sketchier, maybe sketchier to make the cut, will be like a 1.5x multiplier. But if you want to sign up, you get $10 free to use a promo code SAL when you sign up and 100% deposit match up to $50 Rooskies. You should check that out. Also hit that big old like button right now and the subscribe button that pops up on the screen if you're enjoying this. Let's get into some of these really nice bet ranges. So I so far have a bet right up here towards the top. You can see his name as I scroll down. Ricky Fowler, 40-1. He opened on some of these other books, 40 and 30-1. I took the bet at 40-1 right away. Ricky Fowler is somebody that's trending in a very good direction. And the thing that you want to see out of him, so since returning from this break, right, we've seen 4 events out of him. His first event back at the Charles Schwab is very much like we've been seeing pretty much for the most of the year out of Ricky. Outside of having a good finish at the Arnold Palmer, he misses the cut. He loses pretty much everywhere. But then at the RBC Heritage, he does miss the cut, but things start to change. He starts to gain about a stroke in every single department. He just didn't go extremely low, and the putter gave out on him a little bit. The last 2 events, though, everything has been pretty much clicking. He lost 2 strokes on approach last week, but outside of that, he's gaining strokes in every single department over the last 2 weeks. He has finished 12th and 22nd. The thing that I like to see, the tee to green game is back, and the off the tee game is back. That's something that was kind of all over the place. The putter, he's gained in back-to-back, which is something that you can usually rely on for him. The around the green play, he picked up 3.7 strokes around the green last week. I'm not sure if he can continue to do that and put up that much damage around the green, but obviously as long as the short game is clicking, and now you see 4.9 strokes game tee to green 2 weeks ago. Last week, this past week at the same event, 6.2 strokes tee to green. If things are going to click with Ricky's tee to green game, and we know what we could do with the putter up with him and rely on him for, I'm going to like that number at 40-1. If he's playing the way that he is right now over these last 2 events, and you tell me that's how he's going to continue to play as he has the entire week now at Merrifield Village that he's there and playing, I'm going to say that a 40-1 number on him is very good. So I took that number as well. Daniel Berger's here trending. So some other numbers I'll point out. Gary Woodland was somebody who was about to miss the cut. Then he goes birdie eagle, ends up making the cut towards the end of it. And then he comes all the way back on the weekend, has a really good Saturday, and finishes T5. So he goes from just about to miss the cut after a terrible Thursday to storming back on Friday and finishing T5 in the event. He's 45-1 to open. You can see some other books 45 and 35 right now. Woodland's a guy I bet last week because of a really good number at 55-1. I have him jotted down at 45 right now. I have not bet him. The bets I've placed is Tiger 30, John Rahm 22, and Ricky 40 that we've talked about so far. I've not yet bet this number on Woodland at 45-1. I've just put a star next to it. So some of the things that you saw last week, he finally started to get it going everywhere. But the one major thing that's going to stand out, he gained 7 strokes putting. So that's not going to continue. That's just not going to continue. He lost 1 stroke around the green, but everywhere else he looked pretty decent. 1.3 strokes gained on approach. He only gained 3.5 strokes tee to green though. So I have him starred because I think the 45-1 number is still pretty good. But when it comes to events like DraftKings, when it comes to events like honestly even betting, I think it could be a little bit of a sketchier number. Like this guy misses the cut last week if he indeed doesn't have a hot putter, and then you get an even better number on him probably, and then you get a better even DraftKings salary. So 7 strokes putting. The last time he was that good was back at the US Open when he won the US Open. So obviously when you gain that many strokes, you're going to finish pretty highly. So I have a star next to Woodland mainly to tell you about that caution. Like watch out, this guy literally gained 7 strokes putting last week. That might have actually led the field. Like if I go back and try and look at this, let's see how many strokes led the field. I assume the winners might have led the field, but maybe not. Strokes putting last week, Woodland was 3rd. So you had Defoe, I believe somebody who got in on the Monday qualifier, gaining 9.2. Ian Poulter, who made like over 430 feet of putts, 8.9. And then Woodland was 3rd in the field in 7 in strokes gained putting with 7. So Woodland may be something that we stay away from a little bit. I scroll down a little bit more. Justin Rose, who misses the cuts here, 50-1. Answer's been playing well, it's 50-1. I made a bet already on Patrick Reed at 55 because this book had an outlier number. I see a couple 55s. I see a 45. I think Reed's going to be around 50 or 45. I took a bet on Patrick Reed, so he was my 4th bet so far. If we want to look at how Patrick Reed played this past week, it was kind of all over the place. Like the thing that you're normally going to see, like I said it last week on the show, I said it on the DraftKings show, when Patrick Reed loses strokes with the putter, you're going to probably expect him to miss the cut or finish dead fucking last. He lost 1.7 strokes with the putter, the most that he's lost since he missed the cut back in January. Every other time that he's lost strokes with the putter since the start of 2020, he's either missed the cut or finished 51st. He finished 39th here. You want to know why? The tee to green play was clicking and the around the green play was clicking. 4.4 strokes gained. I don't know if he gains 4.4 strokes around the green again, because that was the 2nd best in this entire field. But if he doesn't gain that many, let's just say he gains like an average 2.5 strokes around the green this upcoming week, but then the putter goes from losing a stroke and a half to almost 2 strokes to gaining maybe a half a stroke. He's going to have an even better week. He wasn't hot fire anywhere, really. I mean, he was just good around the green, 2nd best there. Tee to green was strong, 4.2 gains. So this number you're getting on Patrick Reed, like if it said 30 or 35-1, I think it was 33-1 last week, I'd say, okay, that's more sense. 55-1 is nowhere near an okay and fair number. So even if on your books it's bet down, and if some of these numbers are, it's like 45-50-1 on Patrick Reed, I like that as well. Because it was encouraging to see his putter not being there and him to do it. Maybe on some unsustainable around the green play, but I'll bank on a bounce back performance from the putter. He has lost now 3 out of his last 4 events strokes with the putter in back-to-back events, which is a little bit concerning. So maybe we try and take a little bit away from that on DraftKings side, but at this number 55-1, I'm okay with it. And now you're really in a range of great numbers. Like this 40, this is major field stuff, right? Tony Finau, now, 66 to 1. Jordan Spieth and Kuchar, 70 to 1 down here. You keep scrolling. Neiman, 70 to 1. Mark Leishman and Sungjae Im are 70 to 1. So right now I have those 4 bets placed. I'm pretty close. I guess I haven't 100% locked up Sungjae at 70 to 1 because Sungjae's game is a little bit interesting to me right now. It's really hard to read Sungjae. He came in and he's just losing strokes with the putter. He came in on Sunday. I thought I was going to expect a bounce back performance and it didn't happen. He ended up losing 3 strokes with the putter, which is now 3 out of 4 contests that he's lost at least a stroke with the putter, which is a little bit concerning. And when you pair that now with the fact that he's lost back-to-back events tee to green, he's lost 4 strokes in a row or 4 events in a row on approach play. The only thing that's kind of keeping him together is around the green play and is off the tee. So I'm a little bit concerned about Sungjae overall. Like on DraftKings, depending on where he's priced, if he's in like the low 8K range, it's going to be hard to ignore. But if he's in the high 8K range or he's picking up ownership, I might have to steer clear of Sungjae here. But at the 70 to 1 number, like we were just betting Sungjae at like 25 to 1, literally 3 weeks ago, right? We were betting him still at like the 30 to 1 numbers last week. So it's a deeper field, of course. Sungjae, this restart has hurt nobody more than it's hurt Sungjae. Since returning, he's finished 10th, which was good. He kind of backdoored to 10th. Miscut, 58th, 53rd, and 63rd. So the game's all over the place right now for Sungjae. Overall, losing strokes in 3 out of his last 4 contests. He's barely making cuts. He's making cuts on the number at this point, and honestly, like by birdieing final holes like you saw 2 weeks ago. So Sungjae 70 to 1, Leishman 70 to 1. These guys in this range do stand out. Paul Casey's at 75 to 1, although there's an 80 to 1 number out there on him. So I think my 5th bet is going to come from this range of probably Leishman, Sungjae, Paul Casey, one of those types of names. So I will put caution on Gary Woodland's name, although that number does look good at 45 to 1, just the way he's playing and the unsustainable putter that we saw last week, the best that we've seen again since his US Open victory a year ago. So I don't really want to be leveraging on that too much. Again, some other things can bounce back, but his game's a little bit all over the place. Similar things can be said for Sungjae. So I'm a little bit concerned about Sungjae's game. I might actually stay away from that 70 to 1 number, although the number is really good. If anything, again, one of these bets are going to be coming from the 70 to range, Leishman, Sungjae, and Paul Casey. We've seen Paul Casey, I believe, now once since his return, and he looked pretty good. He ended up making the cut. He didn't play as good the week that he returned as Cantley, who also returned that week, but he still finished 32nd. That's the only place we saw him. In that week that we saw him, he lost 1.6 strokes with the putter, but everything else was good. His around the green play, his approach play was clicking. He gained 5.9 strokes tee to green. So I think Casey's at least interesting in the betting markets. Probably will be more of a DraftKings play for me. But let's look down a little bit more. Now we're into like this bombs range, right? But this bombs range isn't what it was last week. It's actually good players down here. You're looking at Rory Sabatini, who just finished pretty strong bounce back week at 110 to 1. Corey Connors is down here, right? The issue is that this is a very loaded field with guys up top. It's a shrunken field too, 133 players instead of like the 155s you're normally used to. It's normally 120 here, but it's up to 133 this year. Scotty Scheffler really struggling, similar to Sungjae since the return. His game's kind of lost a little bit. The one guy that I'll call out that I saw pretty quickly and briefly was Kevin Na here. So I'll highlight Kevin Na. We know that Kevin Na has the pedigree to win. He's won twice in the last year, or full year, right? He's 125 to 1. This might be a bomb that I'm okay getting to. I don't really want to bet a lot of huge numbers. I think there's a really strong range between 30 and like 70 to 1 this week in terms of guys who have a ton of upside. Obviously, above that as well, and like the teens, those guys have upside to win. I just don't want to bet their numbers. The reason you're getting such a long number on Kevin Na and probably a good DraftKings price is because of his back. He withdrew last time, which cost me in some of my DraftKings lineups. I had an outright bet on him that week. But you're getting a guy at 125 to 1 odds that if he was fully healthy, he's probably right in that Mark Leishman range, in that Paul Casey range, in that Sungjae range of like 70 to 1. So I think you're getting good value here. The issue is that he can withdraw after Thursday. He might withdraw before the event starts and while you're watching this, like after I record, right? So that's always going to be the danger, but you are, depending on your risk tolerance, baking in some pretty good upside there if indeed he stays healthy. Again, it's 125 to 1. He's probably not going to win the event anyways, but we're just looking for good values because if you do this long enough, you're going to eventually hit on one at a good value and it's going to continue to pay off for you. So that's where I'm at right now, just as I look at this sort of on a first look, have placed those 4 bets, a 22 to 1 number. Let me look at my numbers right here, my tickets, a 22 to 1 number on Rahm, 30 to 1 on Tiger. The Tiger bet was like, it's mainly just because of the number. I love betting Tiger too, so there's a little bit of motion there. But like if I saw a 16 to 1 number, I'm not betting it. Even if I saw a 20 or 22, I'm not betting it. 30 to 1 though, something that propped up to me. Ricky 40 to 1. I starred Woodland, although probably not going to bet him. And then Reed 55 to 1. Those are my 4 bets. Sungjae, Paul Casey, and Mark Leishman in that 70 to 1 range. All games kind of a little bit over the place. Paul Casey would be like the most stable, so I might end up betting him over the others. And then just looking at it quickly, there are a lot of bombs. Like there's a lot of guys who are going to look like really good numbers this week. You have Harold Varner at 150 to 1. If you keep scrolling down, you're going to find some good numbers like Lanto at 200 to 1. Henrik Norlander, who's been playing well, at 250 to 1. Kevin Na at 125 to 1 is the one that stood out to me the most. I don't really want to be betting that range all that much. Maybe I'll take a couple of guys with some lower volume on them in that range. But with all that said, I appreciate you tuning in. Hit the like button and the big subscribe button before you go. You could also check out and leave a review on the podcast. $50 chance of winning. A pretty good chance too, because only 6 people did last week. That is the Sal Vetri show. And also I will plug once again Superdraft, the sponsor of the show. You want to play some fantasy sports, some daily fantasy sports? You want $10 free to do it and 100% deposit match up to $50? Use the promo code SAL on Superdraft. Their multiplier format, it is very good. They've been having 3 and 5K to first contests as of late, and a ton of overlay and some rake-free contests as well, because they're just not filling those contests, which is good for you, the user. So go in there right now and take advantage of that. I'll link that up down below. If you're interested in DraftKings and a bunch of just projections and all that type of stuff, I have my Patreon down below. I do projections. I do more podcasts in depth on ownership, my exposures, my strategy, my rankings of golfers for each tournament. You can check that out, as well as some other sports covered on there. So thanks for tuning in. My name's Sal Vetri. Appreciate you stopping by my channel. Hope that you subscribe in return for some more content. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below or reach out to me on Twitter at SalVetriDFS. So thank you, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one.